Rome, Italy. Rome was thrown into chaos as a sudden violent hailstorm struck at the city, transforming its cobblestone streets into rivers of ice and leaving a scene of destruction and astonishment. The storm arrived without warning late in the afternoon, bringing hailstones the size of large coins, thunder, lightning, and torrential rain. Meteorologists from Italy's National Meteorological Agency described the phenomenon as one of the most intense collective storms to hit the Lazio region in recent years. Senior meteorologist Dr. Elena Moretti stated, "The combination of extreme heat and the sudden cold front triggered explosive atmospheric instability. Within the minutes, the sky darkened, and a hail pounded the city with a different force. Vehicles were damaged, windshields shattered, and roofs became impassable under a layer of ice. Fire departments received over 1,400 emergency calls, responded to rescue trapped drivers and pump out water from subway station and underground parking garage. Rome Civil Protection Agency urged residents to stay indoors and flash flood hits at the San Giovanni, Trastevere. It was like the end of the world, said Marina Ferrara, a local spokesman near the Coliseum. Everything turned white in 5 minutes. The sound was pure terror. Photos and videos circulated on social media showed iconic landmarks like a Trevi Foundation and the Pizza Venezia buried in the ice. Hail up to 15 centimeters deep fell in some areas, causing road closures and public transport delays. Several trees were uprooted, debris littered the I-19 ring road, and severe traffic jams ensued. Outside the capital, neighboring farmland in Lazio suffered severe agriculture damage. Vineyards and olive groves were devastated, with the farmers estimated losers in the millions of euros. The crops are completely destroyed. It is heartbreaking, said Antonio Rizzi, a farmer in Velletri. Environmental experts warn that climate change is making such extreme weather events increasingly frequent. Professor Gianni Volde and Rome University pointed out the Mediterranean is warming faster than the global average. He explained it. They mean storms generate more energy, making heavy rain and large hail from likely. Rome is reeling from the storm fury as emergency response to unclear roads and access damage. When the admiral city has been reminded is not immune and the intensified extreme weather caused by the climate change.
Grandina tutta, nebbia d'acqua, non si capisce niente.
Italy. This week, violent hailstorms struck parts of the northern and central Italy, unleashed golf ball-sized ice and town of transformed roads, vineyards, and city squares into frozen rivers. Described by Meteorological as one of the most intense storms in the recent years, the disaster caused widespread damage to homes, vehicles, and agriculture, leaving residents stranded. It is set in fury. The hardest hit region were Lombardy, Emilia-Romagna, and Tuscany. In Bologna, hail shattered windows and damaged roofs. In Milan, a wide streets of ice-covered streets completely paralyzing traffic. Sudden flooding added the chaos, flooding emergency service with hundreds of rescue requests. Carlo Benedetti, a resident of Madeira, said it was terrified when in minutes the sky turned pitch black and the thousand near rooms of ice were crashing down. The hailstones with such force they shattered titles and dented cars' bodies on the streets. According to Meteorological from the Italy Civil Protection Department, the storm was triggered by the violent collision between warm air from the Mediterranean and a cold front moving from the Central Europe.
Sì.
This collision swapped the powerful rotation thunderstorm known the supercell, generated giant hailstorm the hurricane-force gas. Dozens of flights were delayed at Milan Malpensa Airport and Florence Peretola Airport. while the rail service forced major disruption. Devastating damage occurred in the rural area, vineyard in Prosecco and Chianti region suffered extensive damage, where the initial estimated protection agriculture losses exceeded 18 million euros. Farmers described the storms as brutal and unprecedented. Julia Relangi, a vineyard owner in Lombardy, stated, "I've never seen hail with a big. In 10 minutes, my entire harvest was lost." Video shared on social media showed vehicles buried in a hail, roads resembled sky shrubs, and a shop plow crews collecting ice with the build zones. Environmental experts warned that the climate change, while rising Mediterranean sea temperatures, are making such violent storms more frequent. This is no longer a rare phenomenon, noted Dr. Matteo Polfi, a climate scientist at the University of Florence. Warmer air holds more energy and emits too, creating ideal conditions for the formation of destructive hailstorm. As a recovery efforts continue across Italy, these storms serve as dark reminder of Europe rapidly changing weather patterns and how our sun-drenched region and face relentless power of unstoppable climate. Italy. A sudden massive hailstorm has caused extensive damage across Italy, paralyzing major cities and devastated vast agriculture areas. This extreme weather struck late Monday night, battered region from Lombardy to Tuscany, with the hailstones the size of a golf ball and a wind exceeded 100 km per hour. It left a trail of destruction, flooding and chaos. Residents in Milan, Bologna and Parma reported scenes of panic in the dark storm cloud relating in an eerily sunlight with minutes. It was followed by a deafening onslaught. Hail smashed roofs, shattered car windows and tearing streets and frozen rivers. It sounded like an explosion, said Franza Bianchi, a shop owner in the Milan. The hailstorm hit so hard they bent to mental separate inward. The fire department across northern Italy received over 2,000 emergency calls, reported to trapped drivers and clearing roads buried under the layer of ice. Power lines shattered, trees and uprooted an entire region, plunged into darkness overnight. Train services were halted in multiple areas, while the Milan Malnesa Airport and Bologna Guglielmo Marconi Airport experienced a delay in cancellation due to heavy hail estimated on runways. Meteorologists from Italy's Severe Protection Agency described the phenomenon as a supercell outbreak. While rare in southern Europe, such events are becoming more frequent. The contrast between extreme heat and a cold front from the Alps created the perfect storm, explained senior meteorologist Dr. Andrea Lombardi. This level of intensity used to occur once every 10 years, but how it happened every year. Severe damage occurred in rural area. Farmers in poor river basin reported corn, tomato, and grape crops crushed by hail. Some farms suffered total destruction just before harvest, with the initial estimated putting damage over 100 million euros. Luigi Ferrara, a farmer in Emilia-Romagna, said it looked like a battlefield. Everything we built this season is gone. Images shared on social media showed cars buried in a hail, roads covered in knee-deep ice, and the rescue workers navigating parts of white like sky slow. In Florence, heavy hail following the hail causing into Arno River to temporarily overflow, flooding low-lying areas. Environmental scientists warn that such extreme weather events, parts of the trend, accelerated climate change. Professor Gianna Volpe of the University of Rome noted the Mediterranean is warming faster than most of the planet. He explained it warning seas supplied by two of the atmosphere near torrential storms, the moisture relentless in emergency as a destructive hail. As Italy begins recovery efforts, authorities have declared a state of emergency in the multiple regions. Damage is estimated to be the hundreds of millions of euros, and the official warned that more extreme weather could continue over the coming weeks. Its depths disappeared under murky water. Rural Sicily was not spared entire. The contrast of the tempest of olive groves and vineyards were ravaged. The customers of Sicily, rich agricultural heritage, which helped lead to their fields were submerged, their livelihoods momentarily wiped out the storm war. The damage of the agriculture sector is cornerstone of the Sicily economy is yet to be fully equipped, but early estimates suggest a significant impact. The storm has also rekindled discussions about the climate change and the increasingly visible impact. Scientists point to rising temperature in the Mediterranean in contrast of more frequent and intense weather patterns. This storm in Sicily is not an isolated incident but horrible to changing climate in respect not geographical barriers. Amidst the chaos have been hearing displays of resilience and solidarity. Communities have together to support provided evacuation support to provide shelters to those displaced. In just a few hours, some areas received more rainfall than they normally do into entire month. Schools and government official and affected areas were closed to precautions and civil protection until the disrupted assist the damage and assist in cleanup. In Palermo, several unprecedented were flooded rapid cars and landslides were reported in towns located on hills. Experts warned that such intense and frequent storm could become a normal in the southern Italy. Climatologists are urging authorities and citizens to strengthen infrastructure and emergency preparedness on the Mediterranean region continue to face the worsening effect of global warming. As Sicily beginning to clean up, the storm severals are not yet another stark reminder on a growing instability of the nature and urgent need to action to ensure environmental sustainability. Sicily has always faced extreme weather conditions, say climatologist Lucia De Santis, but the scale of intensity of this phenomenon is unprecedented. The sea surface temperature is at 3 Celsius above average and they contributed to strongest storm. The Italian Red Cross has launched a campaign to collect food, clothing and foods. Donations are accepted online in location collection center. Despite the destruction have also been stories by heroism. In Palermo, a police officer warning through the flood waters a rescue an elderly couple trapped in the flooded car. We couldn't leave them there. The water was rising fast, he said. As cleanup beginning to Sicily starts to recover, officials warned the crisis far from over. Weather warning reminding police and another storm front could in southern Italy by the weekend. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed her condolences and promised immediate government support. We will not leave Sicily alone with this tragedy. The flood also caused significant economic damage. Vineyards, citrus grove, and olive farms are blackboard on Sicily economy, where flooded and agriculture groups warn of millions in losers. Businesses in the historic center of Palermo may be closed for the weeks and a half a month. The Italian Meteorological Service has linked in disaster to the Medican and Mediterranean cyclones similar to the Trapon storm, since one the climate change is exacerbating such phenomena as a warning sea contributing to heavier rains and a violent storm. Residents clearing debris are in shock. Standing outside the damaged barrier, Rosa County said, Sicily is used to the hardship, but this something else. We cannot fight this our own. Tourists were equally astonished. Video circulated widely on social media showing iconic landmarks surrounded by palms and a hail sparking combination of northern European winter. Authority warning of potential group damage in nearly Lazio, forming particularly vineyards and olive groves. Experts note that while hailstorms are not unusual in the central Italy, an intensity of the scale and episode underline a growing volatile weather patterns linking to climate change. A cleanup operations continue. Residents are left reflecting on yet another reminder of nature forcing the city form of the history but increasingly tested by modern climate extremes. Hospitals reported on the sharp increase in importance of the bureaus and the minor factories. Businesses, especially cafes and open-air markets, suffered significant losses of the sudden flood destroyed supplies to outdoor sitting areas. Farmers to the outskirts and the city also serious losses and a vineyard and olive groves were destroyed by the storm. Video quickly spread on social media showed hailstorm bouncing off incident capable of the flooding landmarks such as the Coliseum, shocking viewers around the world. Tourists caught on the storm described the experiences as apocalyptic. Climate experts warned that such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent in Italy, pointing out the former warmer seas contributed to the strong storm. As a cleanup efforts continue, Rome is telling the financial damage and reflection to the capital vulnerability to sudden climate shock. Chaos and disbelief swept through the Italian capital as a ferocious hailstorm tore across Rome, blanketing streets in ice, flooding tunnels and leaving residents trapped in their cars and homes. The storm, which started suddenly in the late afternoon, turned into eternal city, into the witness described it as a frozen battlefield. Meteorologists said the event was triggered by a clash between the warm Mediterranean air and rapidly advanced Arctic front, a combination that prouded towering thunderstorm and the severe hail. Within moments, hailstones the size of large coins plumped the city, shredded through windows and dented vehicles across entire neighborhoods. I've lived in Rome, and whole life I never seen anything like it, said 34-year-old Yale taxi driver Marco De Santis. The storm unleashed torrents in the city water through the several districts, including Trastevere, San Giovanni, and Ostiense, where drainage system was overwhelmed. Firefighters reported to more than 1,500 emergency calls, rescuing stranded motorists and pumped water from metro station and underground garage. Power cuts hit multiple areas, while traffic across A19 ruined ground to half an hour. Photos and videos shared online showed rivers of ice flowing through the incident cobblestone streets and half-building knee-deep around the famous landmark. The Trastevere foundation overflowed with a ruin of water, while parts of Via del Corso resembled glacier. powerful storm hit Sicily, plunging part of the Italian island into chaos as torrential rain, strong winds and a flash flood swept through the gray skies, including Palermo, Catania and Messina. According to Italy's Civil Protection Department, the storm dumped more than 120 mm of rain in just a few hours, nearly a month's worth, flooding streets, collapsing roads and prompted dozens of evacuations. Emergency service responded more than 300 calls using helicopters to board the rescue trapped residents. In Palermo, dramatic footage showed cars flooding like toys and shops in the historic center of flooding. Giulia Romana, a 42-year-old local resident, said, "It was terrible. The water rushed into our house in a matter of minutes. The barrier had time to move the upper floor. Schools were closing in affected regions, and hundreds of people were left without power due to power outage." Authority also reported temporarily closed to Catania airport. The rail runway were flooded, caused delays and cancellations. Meteorologists explained the extreme weather conditions as a mitigant to rare Mediterranean hurricane formed by high sea temperature and unstable air masses. Public transportation was severely disrupted, leaving passengers stranded. The coastal area started to burst with a storm and strong wave crashing against the coastline, causing erosions to damage the sea deafenings. Emergency services are working around the clock to help those in need. The Italian Red Cross has mobilized a team to support the most affected areas, offering shelters and distributing basic necessities. Refuse operations are ongoing, with the reports of people trapped in their homes due to rising water. Helicopters have been deployed to evacuate those to imminent danger. The impact of the storm on agriculture is also a growing concern. Sicily knows the serious growth of vineyard forces potential devastation. Initial estimates suggest significant crops losers, with a could have the long-term economic impact of the region farming communities. Italian Prime Minister Conte has experienced solidarity with the affected residents, pledging government aid to resources to support recovery efforts. He praised the resilience of the Sicilian people and terrorist forced rescues. Meteorologists predict severe weather conditions will continue over the next 24 hours and advise residents to remain vigilant. As Sicily struggles with the aftermath and the disaster of focus to ensure the safety of the residents is beginning to arduous task to rebuilding. The full extent of the damage will become clear in the coming days, but for now Sicily is widespread the storm relentless onslaught. Italy Environmental Minister has promised a new plan to rebuild the south, including flood protection and reforestation measures, improvement to early warning system, but critical say this measure alone overdue. In Palermo, the sun broke through the grey sky, eliminating the messy aftermath in the night of Sicilian will not soon forget. We use a hardship, said Maria Conte, the grandmother, whose home was flooded, but we will drive flood, support each other and move on. Sicily is beginning to recover, but questions remain. Will the storm, the wake-up call, just another serious ignore of warnings? Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed her condolences and promised immediate government support. "We will not leave Sicily alone with this tragedy." The flood also caused significant economic damage. Vineyards, citrus grove, and olive farms are blackboard on Sicily economy, where flooded and agriculture groups warn of millions in losers. Businesses in the historic center of Palermo may be closed for the weeks and a half a month. The Italian Meteorological Service has linked in disaster to the Medican and Mediterranean cyclones similar to the Trapon storm. Since when the climate change is exacerbating such phenomena as a warning sea contributing to heavier rains and a violent storm. Residents clearing debris are in shock. Standing outside the damaged barrier, Rosa Conte said, "Sicily is used to the hardship, but this something else. We cannot fight this our own." Rome was struck by an unexpected violent hailstorm, transforming ancient streets into rivers of ice. Within the minutes, the Italian capital, known for its warm autumn nights, was pelted by hailstorms the size of walnuts created on unusual winter scenes of mid-October. According to meteorologists, the phenomenon resulted from the violent collisions between most Mediterranean air and the sudden cold front from northern Europe. These collisions swept the massive cumulonimbus clouds, bringing torrential rain and intense hail accompanied by gusts reaching 19 km per hour. "It felt like being inside an ice-filled washed machine," said the residents near Pisa, Venezia. Emergency services were overwhelmed by hundreds of calls. Firefighters rescued drivers trapped in the flooded cars, and subway station closed due to flooding. Major throughout the lack of cars and streets along the Tiber River become impossible. "Rome is not structurally equipped to handle with the kids of weather," noted Luca Bianchi of the City of Civil Protection Department. "Our system simply cannot cope with the sudden extreme rainfall. Hospital territory doesn't endure after slippery on frozen sidewalks." Raising the alarm over significant damage to crops, vineyard and olive groves, gave the region economy, where damaged raising corns about the shortage and price drugs. Local markets lost fresh produce, water and ice, and destroyed market stalls. A dramatic video approached the social media showing hailstone pelted down of the Colosseum with some clip centimeters of the view of meteor in hour. Meteorologists warned the severe meteor, previously rare in Rome, could become common in rising sea temperatures, intensify storm in the southern Europe. A Rome clear ice from the streets and eases the financial damage. The storm has represented the debate about the urban resilience, climate change adaptation, and the Italian capital's preparedness for the increasingly unpredictability of nature. The small town of Al-Balif in province of Como was left in shock after severe hailstorm hit the area on a Monday evening, covering streets, cars and roofs with ice balls with the size of walnuts in some areas tennis ball. The storm, which lasted less than half an hour, caused significant damage but struck locals with a sudden ferocity. Residents described it chaotic scenes and roads turned wild in a matter of minutes, forcing cars to stop. It was like an attack, where the hail was so strong that it broke roofs, totaled and damaged cars in a second. second, St. Maria County, a shop owner in the city center. Several houses has broken windows and emergency service received dozens of calls for help. Firefighters worked throughout the night and cleared fallen branches to secure damaged roofs, with the local farmers reported significant crops losers, especially in vineyards and orange weather, were weeks away from the harvest. Agriculture Association estimated the damage of hundreds of thousands of euros. Videos posted online showed the streets Albaville, a recently frozen river with the drain overflowing with a sudden rush in water and ice. Public transport were the disruption throughout the province of Como, and temporarily enclosures were put up in place in prevent accidents. Meteorologists explained the phenomenon as a result in a sharp rise in hot, humid air against the cold front moving from the northern Italy, and the collisions that can cause severe thunderstorm and hail. Experts also noted that climate change is increasing both with the frequency and severity of such events throughout the region. Local authority urged residents to check instability in their roofs and vehicles, and the major promised rapid assistance to those affected. Albaville was faced many storms, but this was one of the worst in recent years. We support our community in the recovery, he said. For the many residents of the province of Como, the storm was stark reminder of the unpredictability of nature, and the growing challenge is adapting to weather conditions. Rome was hit a sudden and violent hailstorm that turned a cobblestone streets into the city rivers and shocking residents. The storm, which hit during the evening rush hour, brought golf-sized ball hailstones, torrential rain and strong winds of the city caused significant disruption and damage. When the minutes measured through the faces, such as Via del Corso, were covered in ice, bringing traffic at standstill. Cars were damaged, white ships were shattered, and motorcyclists were forced to abandon their vehicles. It was like a bombardment of stones from the sky, said Marco De Santis, who took shelter in the cafe where the storm reached. Public transport were paralyzed, several metro stations were flooded, and tram service were suspended. At Formiquito Airport, flights were delayed after the runway were covered with slush and ground stamped rushed to clear the debris. The city's historic landmark also suffered significant damage from the storm. Tourists took shelter under the arches of Colosseum and up-filtered its antient area to layers into ice accumulated to steps to Spanish stamps and Pisa, Venezia. Emergency service rushed to protect archaeological sites, fearing the water seepage could damage the fragile structures. Hospitals reported dozens of injuries, mostly from the slippers on the ice sidewalks or being stuck on fallen bridges. Power outage left thousands of homes in darkness. In the flash floods inundated underground parking lots of basements in low-lying areas such as Trastevere and Toscana. Meteorologists explained that the storm formed that the warm Mediterranean air collided with the cold front moving south from northern Europe, creating strong updrafts that caused unusually large hailstorms. Experts warn that due to climate change, such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and intense throughout Italy.
Andavo a 100 all'ora per trovare la compagnia, yeah, 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 yeah. Andavo a 100 all'ora per cantare la serenata, bam, 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 bam.
In dramatic turn of events, Sicily finds itself if those in unprecedented storm as nature unleashed any fury upon the picturesque Italian island. We burst of the exclusive coverage of meteorological spectacle, deletion the impact of communities, infrastructure, and the environment. As the storm approached Sicily, among the clouds gathering hilding the tempest to unparalleled proportions. Coastal area forced to onslaught the fierce winds and torrential rains, leading the widespread flooding in challenging conditions to both residents to emergency service. Our on-the-ground reported paint a vivid picture to havoc wreaked by the storm. The city of Palermo was transformed into rivers and water levels soared, submerged cars and tested to resilience to floodedness. The historic architecture stood the test time to the faces of relentless onslaught of the wind of rain. Throughout the island communities are grappling with the power outage, and the storm force causes significant damage to electrical infrastructure. Emergency shelters have been opened to provide refuge to those displaced by the storm. Culture representative warned that the addition of psychological storm urged me to adapt to climate change were needed to prevent Sicily identified to tourist economy. This is a symbol act to unity in the consulate across the Sicily. Royal Bail territory as noon Tuesday, a moment of silence of victims is signs strange to serious. Sicily and no stranger to hardship. From the earthquake to volcanic eruption they have endured a lot, but this storm, many say, was different, not just a natural disaster but climate warning. The wind and the water. This is not the first time Sicily was faced at the wrath of nature, but experts are calling this storm one of the most destructive weather events in decades. The last such disaster occurred in 2029, where deadly floods and landslides killed 37 people in Messina, but this time the combination of heavy rainfall, wind and widespread infrastructure damage made the consequences even more serious. According to preliminary government report, more than 1,200 homes were damaged, 14 roads remain closed and 7 bridges have been structure damaged. Insurance companies are already inundated with the calls of many families without insurance to continue on compensation from the state. This storm was particularly dangerous because it sudden. Meteorologists issued a yellow alert just hours before the first downpour. By that time, it was too late many communities to prepare. Critics are now to call into fast weather warning system to better preparedness of natural disaster, especially in the southern region, which is often overlooking. Satellite images show in a grim picture.
Chiudi.
Rome, Italy. A powerful and sudden hailstorm brought the Italian capital to the standstill, transforming the historic streets into frozen torrential and leaving residents in shock. Within minutes, dark clouds gathered over the eternal city, unleashed the violent downpour of ice that covered cars, monuments, and pigeons under the thick layer of white. Meteorologists describe the event of extreme collective cell, an unusual atmospheric clash between warm Mediterranean humidity and a cold Arctic front. Hailstones, some exceeded 3 centimeters in diameter, pounded rooftops and vehicles. Standing off alarm across the city, wind gusts reached nearly 100 km/h, intensified the destruction, uprooted trees and scattered debris along the Tiber River. Emergency service received over 120 calls. In 2 hours, dozens of vehicles were abandoned the submerged streets, and firefighters working tirelessly to free people trapped in the underpass. Several metro lines and bus roads were suspended due to flooding and power outage. It looked like a scene from the disaster movie, said resident Lombardy. In a few minutes day turned into night, and the streets became a river in the ice. Rome came to a sudden halt after a severe hailstorm swept through the city, flooding the streets, paralyzing traffic, and shocking residents with the scale of the event. In the matter of minutes, large hailstones covered squares and boulevards, transformed parts of the Italian capital into winter scenes in the middle of autumn. Meteorologists explained that the storm was caused by the collisions of the most Mediterranean air with the approaching cold front, which caused severe thunderstorms capable of producing hailstones up to 4 centimeters in diameter. The storm in both the city center of the surrounding suburbs damaged cars, broke windows, and blocked drainage systems. Public transport was severely disrupted. Buses were stuck in flood in underpasses, and trams stopped because the tracks were covered in ice. Passengers described it chaotic scenes. It was like driving balls. To had to stop and wait because it was impossible to see the road, said Marco, a local taxi driver. Emergency service responded to hundreds of calls. A rescue driver stuck in rising waters to help in precedent to the injured after slipping in the sidewalks, made slippery by hail. The Italian capital, more accustomed by scrolling heat wave, stumbled after exploding hailstorm hit Rome, covering the streets with ice, destroying cars and causing chaos throughout the entire city. What began the heavy rain suddenly intensified it into the torrent and hailstones, larger than the golf ball, battering the city at nearly half an hour. When it means major landmarks such as the Lazio and Spanish Steps and Villa de Corso was surrounded by the river of ice while traffic came to complete standstill. It was a winter had arrived violent incident, said Luca Romano, who abandoned her car near the Pizza Venezia. The hailstone broke in glass. It threw the roof when going to collapse. Emergency hotline were overwhelmed and firefighters rushed to more than 500 incidents across the capital. Foreign streets crushed vehicles, safe ground windows shattered, and several subway stations were flooded. At least 40 people were treated to injuries, mainly caused by broken glass and slippery falls. Hospitals in Trastevere and Termini reported overcrowded emergency rooms.
Eccoci qua, è arrivata la prima pioggia. Devo spendere pure le luci alla piazzetta.
Parts of the southern Italy are trying to recover from the torrential rain that caused a devastating flood in Sicily. Flooding cities, blocked roads, and leaving thousands of people without electricity. Officials have called the disaster a national emergency. Within hours, the streets of Palermo, Catania, and Messina turned into raging rivers that swept away cars and flooded the first floor to homes and businesses. The Italian Civil Protection Agency reported that more than 115 millimeters of rain fell in less than 20 hours, an amount that usually falls over several months. Local resident Maria Russo told reporters, "The water came so fast that in a matter of minutes my streets turned into a river. We didn't have time to have anything." Emergency service rescue families standing on rooftops and firefighters walked throughout the night clearing debris and pumping water out of hospitals and schools. At least 20,000 households were left without power and many villages remain isolated after landslides blocked acid roads. Authorities confirmed several injuries, at least 3 deaths, although death toll could rise in such countries. As Sicily slowly begins to dry up, the real lesson of the storm is being recovered not only in blizzards but also in dialect and the growing average in the Mediterranean Sea. One of the candle ice calm sea is sunny skies is becoming of the epicenter of the climate disaster. Experts call this a turning point to the urge Southern European government is invest in the climate resilience. Coastal cities such as Palermo and Catania, densely populated, are rich in culture heritage, particularly vulnerable to rising sea levels, increasing rainfall to heat waves, degrees. The Mediterranean Sea is warming 20% faster than the global average, said Dr. Elena Moretti, the climate researcher of University of Rome. This storm was not a fluke. This is part of the trend we are seeing more intense, more frequent, more destructive. International observers from UNESCO have experienced constant bouts at historical monuments, many of which were flooded or damaged during this storm. The Brockway tributaries of Noto and ancient Greek ruins, as still nude, and new parts of the parts surrounding Mount Etna were affected. Businesses and restaurants suffered significant losers as water and ice flooding basements and outdoor terraces. The city farmed landmarks from the Colosseum to Pisa Novara, the brilliantly unrecognized shady streets of hail. Agriculture areas surrounding Rome also reported heavy damage. Farmers in Lazio said crops and grapes, olives and artichokes were devastated. Climatologists warned that such sudden and destructive storms are becoming more common across southern Europe due to climate change. The Mediterranean basin is heating faster than the global average, explained Dr. Elena Moretti of Italy National Meteorological Institute. This increases the energy available to violent thunderstorms. As cleanup operations continue, the city faces millions in damage and the stark warning about the vulnerable to extreme weather. The storm throughout Lazio test 1 hour will likely be remembered as one of Rome's most severe hail events in the decades.